Welcome. We are starting the after chapter discussion of chapter 10.22R. So, welcome everybody. Hopefully, you guys are excited to discuss this intriguing chapter of checking into some characters that we haven't seen in a while. So, we'll start out with general impressions and thoughts about the chapter before diving into some specific discussion topics and questions. Would anyone like to start us off with their thoughts about chapter 10.22R?
Yeah, sure. Just giving my thoughts. I really like seeing Rabbit Eater, what's going on with them, what's going on with the princess and the crew, and what the the Ivory Throne Five now think of Rabbit Eater now that they know that he's a goblin. Really interesting. Just really liked it. That's what I thought. Rabbit Eater is really strong now that he's a lord. You know.
Yeah, man, that was like a revelation into all of his kind of new abilities and his promotion. We don't know what he's the Goblin Lord of. I think that was listed as sort of unclaimed or unknown
Yeah,
at the moment.
he's not like part of a tribe, I guess, or something. He has a subclass which is new. I've never seen that before. He has like a subclass of his old knight class. Um, it's just
Yes,
interesting.
Sidehammer's got it. Rabbit Eater of Champions. I'm surprised that it wasn't pinged towards the inn, right? Because he's associated with Aaron and the Wandering Inn, and I guess maybe you're right. Maybe it's like it has to be Goblin related somehow.
Yeah, it's probably Goblin Lord, so it has to be like the Flooded Waters tribe or something. But he hasn't been back since he's been a Goblin Lord, so it's kind of like up in the air where he's going to end up. He might end up on Balaros. He might be going back to Israel. Um, It's actually surprising that the Kraken Eater chieftain isn't the Goblin Lord since he's so powerful. I wonder if Rabbit Eater could beat him in a fight. Because he's a Formilidin and he's got like a ton of skills. He could eat fireballs like it's nothing. So it's just interesting to see what the levels mean, especially with the different racial options that the goblins have. Rabbit Eater seems really strong. He's got a bunch of skills. He's got like some wondrous act, which can just do bullshit like disrupting lightning and fireballs, and he seems to be able to spam it too, which is really interesting. I wonder what how he's going to empower his tribe, because I only saw that he could summon his companions, so probably the Red Fang 6 or 5 or whatever it was. Like maybe he could summon the wraiths or something. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't remember exactly what the skills he got for the tribe were.
Yeah, I don't either, but a lot of them were just basically like, right, increasing intellect or wisdom, or basically kind of giving him a charge up on different aspects. But no, it'll be exciting to kind of see how that plays out because I don't think he aligns himself with the tribe per se.
Yeah,
So it'll be interesting to see if that is somehow rectified when he meets Aaron, if the system revises that and how it treats that class.
yeah. He has like this. He used to be able to like bump up his different aspects, but now it's like supreme buffing his aspects, and now he has a lesser buff in every single one of his aspects. Um,
Yeah, it's cool that he can choose which to supercharge, basically.
Yeah, like you don't need to be super smart, super strong, super charismatic all the time, but now he could just like kind of change it based on like what situation he's in. Um
It's interesting though that it impacted non-goblins, right? Because he was wondering why everybody was recognizing him and bowing to him, and part of that was
it's
his
the
new status.
charisma, it's the
Yeah.
class and probably the class because it's a royal class. It probably fits in with into the skills of royalty because he's a
Mhm.
goblin lord. Um So it's just interesting. And we know Velen was a Goblin Lord, and he was integrated with society. It was only when he became a Goblin King that things kind of went off the rails with like
The
communicating
badness.
with other people.
We're
Um,
getting closer to that lore reveal. Pirates been dropping hints like this, and all of the last two writing sections. I feel like that secret's going to potentially get revealed this volume.
the Goblin King secret.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's been like 13 million words, and we still don't know.
And that
no
was one of the
other, no
earliest
other
early
author,
secrets.
no other author could like do this. You know?
And that was one of the earliest ones. So I'm curious to see how Pirate's gonna pull it off. All right, but I'm hearing back from Mystical Pie. They said it was nice to check in on Rabbit Eater. They're really looking forward to learning more about Goblin Lords through his perspective and seeing how his plot intersects with everything else happening on Valeros this volume. And as so, guys, get your last sort of general impressions in, and then we'll kind of move over to discussion questions. But if anyone else has any thoughts they want to share, feel free to ping me, or Red Inkwell if you want to keep chatting about
Yeah.
general impressions. Go for it.
We don't know what was making him sick. We just know that he was able to crush the light when he awakened and like he saw his class. So like was that some fairy bullshit or like what was that? Was that just a buff that the gods or like the other races was that a debuff that the gods and other races put on goblin lords that try to kill them before they come into their power? Like that was very that's like a new
I just
mystery, you know?
thought it was his body changing, right? So like when
Oh, but
they like go
he
to
was seeing lights, which was no one else could see. So that's
yeah, but I
something,
just thought
right?
that was just the spirits of the dead and like realizing like what goblins like goblin lords have a special knowledge, right? Compared to like
Hmm.
other goblins. And so I surmise, I mean, I guess it's a guess, it's not confirmed, but I kind of figured that that was him gaining that knowledge and ability, right? He kind of hints at it when he talks to the vampire squire, where he's like, I know, you know,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
he is like
yeah,
his words turned yellow.
right. That's what
Yeah.
I figured was that just him getting like physically changing as well as getting all that knowledge that he didn't
Oh, you think
have
so?
before.
You think it's like kind of like a download that will upload into his consciousness whenever it's applicable?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
So he doesn't have to go unconscious like Rags did to learn about Velen. Yeah,
Right. Or
that
like
makes sense.
or Erin, frick, what's her name? Obama, or like Obama, where she has to go into a trance, right? Like
Yeah,
go back and dream and
yeah, so
whatever.
he just went into a trance for like a first trance for like several days, and now he has
Right.
all the applicable knowledge that he needs. Okay. Yeah, but
That was my guess.
he did crush one of the lights when he awakened, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, like, yeah, what that also signifies. And I think we know Numtung has abilities related to the
Souls, yeah.
spirits and souls.
But also
And
the
I
princess has those abilities as well. She can see ghosts, so wouldn't she have been able to see spirits, you know, if they had been there? You know,
well,
Arafel
but
would have been able to see those,
she
right?
has a slightly different relationship, I think, with the ghosts and the spirits, right? Because she keeps going into graveyards, like looking around for them. That was mentioned when we first met her,
Yeah,
and
she's
she hasn't
but
really
since she became
encountered
a
any.
since she became a death touched princess, she hasn't been going into graveyards that we've seen. It was before she got that class that she was looking in graveyards for ghosts. So I think she would be able to probably see any kind of dead spirit. So it's just another mystery, you
I
know.
mean, it could be that it kind of goes beyond where, like, she can't access the different deadlands, right? She can only see them if they're on the same plane as her, whereas, like, maybe
Mm,
the Goblin Lords have
yeah, from
access
Halstead.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe they have that access.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Um, really like the chapter. It's so unfortunate that Pirate's grandma died. Like that's such it's such an awful thing that happened. But I was glad that we got this chapter and maybe like another one this week before she got the news. And I also want to read that her depression chapter. Like she writes like
Mhm.
another character. I'd like to read that. Um, but
Yeah, I hope absolutely all the best for Pirate and taking the time that they need. Losing a family member is, or friend for that matter,
yeah, it could
never no matter. It's never easy.
it's not a week kind of thing. It's like not like,
No,
oh, a week out and I'm back in. It might take a while to adjust, you know?
yeah, no.
Uh,
So all the best and all the time that they need with them for sure. I mean,
yeah.
there's 13 million words. There's plenty to go back and discuss,
Yeah.
and talk about. In the forums and things. We absolutely should not be pressuring the author in any way. They should need to take
No,
the time
no,
that they need.
take all our time, take time to talk to like therapists or family or just take time to get back into it. but also, you gotta keep on like not necessarily writing for us, but like you have to like continue on with life, I guess. So whatever that is for her, whatever she likes to do, she should keep on doing that stuff, just so that she can like stay tethered to like reality and stuff. Um,
Yeah,
but
whatever kind of works for the healing process,
yeah,
because you're right, it's a
exactly.
roller coaster.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I wanted to talk about
Okay,
for general
thank you.
thoughts. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. I think you brought up some really great points. So, just a couple others from people before we move on to the next discussion, or the first discussion question, I should say. Clay says it was fun reading Rabbit, referred to as a lord repeatedly. That was their main impression from this chapter. Sidehammer says they really enjoyed this chapter, Rabbit strong. And all right, so the first discussion question, we kind of jumped into it a little bit, but what do you guys think? Do all goblins become lords at level 40? What is it about Rabbit Eater that made him qualified? Do you think that he could have declined the Lord class? So I'll jump in with my thoughts before we kind of move into specific people. I don't think all goblins become lords at level 40, otherwise, we'd have a lot more of them running around. I don't think we've met all the high level goblins, but I assume there are definitely some out there that aren't lords. I don't know what makes him qualified though. I am curious as to that myself. My guess is it's some sort of combination of the kind of hero class that he had with the cave goblins, the fact that he's a knight and he's out trying to fight for what makes him sort of believe what's right. I imagine there's many different paths that can take you to a lord status. I wonder if Rabbit Eater has kind of stumbled on an outside method, and that maybe the other lords became lords because one of the kings acknowledged them somehow. We know that the lords seem to be hanging around for quite a long period of time. But yeah, no, don't know. Curious to see what you all think and what you're all going to speculate. But probably like any class, he could have declined it. Don't think it's an automatic, you have to accept this, which some of the red classes are like, unless maybe you have enough willpower or to reject them somehow. But I don't think the Lord class is something that uh, he he wouldn't be able to decline. Action Kermit says they think Rabbit Eater became a lord because he assumed authority and drew on the power of a lord during the Solstice battle. Clay says they don't think level 40 is the only qualifier for being a goblin lord. They think it's the reverse. The same way goblins become hobs when they're needed and able, they become lords when needed and able. They think the GD noticed he became a lord and awarded him experience in a new class for it, pushing him to level 40. The only pushback I would say on that, Clay, is he's not the goblin lord of anything, right? He's a goblin lord, but of no particular area or group. So I'm if we, and I think I agree with your theory, and this is why I'm thinking maybe Rabbit Eater found a way around the normal system where I would agree that normally they arise when they're needed and able, but in this case, where was he needed? What was the requirement there? I would agree that he's able, but he would be the Goblin Lord of something. So I'm just wondering if Aaron's had an impact on the system, thinking about how it handles level ups and all sort of the weirdness that's kind of going along with that right now. Superbred Ninja says they wonder if it has something to do with aura, considering that's when he was first called one, was when he twisted his aura onto his blade. Red Quill or Red Inquill, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that you probably do have to reach name rank in power, so level 40 probably is the cutoff. But the reason that Rabbit Eater was able to become a lord is because he was on the scrying TV, which is a new invention, and all the goblins knew that he was a goblin because Rags had told them. So, and also the goblins in other areas knew that it was Rabbit Eater was a goblin, and they were watching on TV, and they were like giving him their energy in the same way like that a shaman would get their energy. So he became a leader for them in that way. But because he was not actually with them, and they were not like a tribe, he didn't become a goblin lord of a blank tribe because it was just a bunch of goblins all over the world that were like giving him the support he needed. So when he became powerful enough and he had the support, he became a goblin lord. But because he did not have like structured tribe, he didn't become a Goblin Lord of yada yada tribe. If he
That's a great
did,
point. I'd forgotten about all the goblins watching on the TV or the whatever it's called. That's a very solid point. So like goblin of the goblins or lord of the goblin, lord of all the goblins.
yeah, because like he's been a hero for a long time, and the GDI said he couldn't become a hero because he was a goblin, so he was like cut off from being a hero, even though he hit all the marks. But the only reason that is because the GDI already has a class for goblin heroes, and that's Goblin Lord. Um, so we saw how powerful Rabbit Eater was. Let me actually look at these skills. Um, Let me go back to it because it's at the beginning of the chapter. He got like a bunch of skills. Let's see. Let me open
It was
this up.
interesting in the goblin skills, right? Like he was assigned some and then they were canceled and then or like I think the system was like, oh no, and it reevaluated and assigned him something else. Like there were a few levels or class assignments in there that seemed like they got canceled out, like the system was almost rethinking it, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it says conditions met. Indomitable champion goes into supreme chevalier of dot dot dot, and then it says green notification conditions overridden. Goblin Lord class obtained. So if he hadn't had the support of all those goblins, he would have become the indomitable. He would have begun supreme chevalier of dot dot dot.
Do we
Um,
know that it's due to the support of all the goblins, though, or is that still
well, in
speculation?
order to become a lord of goblins, you have to have the support of goblins, like a large support. So Rags is a large tribe. She's level 39. After she goes through whatever conflict that happens, she'll also probably become a lord. Um,
Necessarily, because I mean,
You
the
think she'll still remain a great chieftain? Because she already was
well,
a chieftain, then she was a great
but
chieftain. What's the
but
level
think about this,
three?
right? Think about
Yeah.
this, because we had the other chieftains that had larger tribes, more support, and they weren't goblin lords all over Israel.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you have to be like kind of exalted. You know
Maybe
what I
some
mean?
sort of like, I mean, I think the way that
You
that
have to be seen as like
Rabbit
larger
Eater,
than life,
well, like you
right?
had a knight, right? So like Rabbit Eater, if you continue on the knight traditionally, if you think about it in fantasy, right? You think traditional fantasy lore.
Yeah.
Once you're on the knight path, the next status, once you achieve, recognition or money or support, is you get promoted to a lord's or noble status of some sort by a king or a royalty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we know Aaron was talking to the system. It's just whether or not Aaron's the one pressing on that, or if it was the recognition of all the goblin leaders all over the world.
It
Like,
actually,
what,
the
what kind of
only
led to that?
kings that would matter to goblins are the dead goblin kings. So
Mm,
maybe the GDI is interacting with Hell State, and it's who they think are
that's cool.
worthy of the class.
That would be really cool.
Because their souls still
Absolutely.
exist in Hell State, right? So the goblin
Yeah.
kings still exist. They weren't swallowed up and had to be make of like copies of. Um, so he got body constitution of the champion, which is lesser everything. It's toughness,
Mhm.
strength, endurance, dexterity, charisma, and speed. I think probably toughness, endurance. In like another book, that would probably be the same stat, but it's obviously different because like endurance is probably how long you can go, and toughness is how tough you are. And then he got supreme aspect of the champion, which is he can supercharge those lesser everything. And then he got form squad. My companions are with me. That's probably the Red Fang Five, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So
a- and then probably the tribe thing is like he can empower a goblin to hit that target and they become as powerful as his brothers. Um and maybe he could use that on non-goblins also. And he got squad goblin teamwork combined obtained and intercept uh mortal blow. So that's like he got that, and then his title skill is what he used against like the magic spells, Wonder Steed, I believe, in miracles. So he basically has like divine skill now, where he can just perform miracles, like cut apart lightning, intercept fireballs. At least that we've seen so far. It's probably like sword work as well. But
I mean, he's getting up there, and we know that like level 40 to level 50 comes with a pretty big power up.
yeah, he'll probably
So
start getting skills almost every level now. Like not every level, there'll probably be a few that are missed, but he'll be getting skills pretty often. It's just that he's not an earther, so he doesn't have like the 150% bonus.
yeah,
Uh
it'll be some time, but he's being put in like super risky situations. I think goblins, given the fact that their entire life is a scramble to source survival, they probably would
yeah,
be a quicker downhill.
probably one more battle on the level of fighting off an entire fleet would do it.
Yeah,
Um if he was an earther, that would have leveled them up immediately. Uh
absolutely. You'd be
You know,
up
because
there.
Earthers like they go through one conflict and they level up like 3 times. You know. uh,
All right, let me get to some other people and then we'll
okay.
circle back if you've got any other thoughts. But I think those are absolutely great points. So, Super Red Ninja says they wonder if it has something to do with Aura, considering that's when he was first called one. Oh, I read that aloud, but for the readers, just Aura is a or listeners, Aura is a point of consideration. Clay says they think if he's the Lord of something, he's the Goblin Lord of friendship and kindness. When Eudoran died, Rabbit said he still wanted to be friends with him even to the end. This seems to tie in with Rags' art of writing to the end of violence, the cycle of the end to end the cycle of violence. Goblins are in with the rest of the world. Mystical Pie says they don't have any superformed thoughts about this, but they think a Goblin Lord is a step in the Goblin evolution. And the system grants the Lord class when a Goblin achieves that evolution. They don't think this evolution is tied to levels, but instead is tied to the perception of other Goblins. This is partly because they have a hard time believing Reese was level 40. They think that's why he was able to use the gold voice during the solstice. He was already approaching the tipping point of evolving into a goblin lord, and that just happened to coincide with him becoming level 40. And quite a few people agree with this. Patricior, what are your thoughts?
Looking at the original question about if all goblins become lords at 40, I think I'm gonna have to say no. And I think we have two goblins honing in on that level, being Rags and I think Numtongue. And I think we're gonna see a case where one of them does not become a goblin lord. And what is it about Rabbit Eater that made him qualify? I think it was like volume 5 or 6 where Greydash was talking to the survivors, and he was telling them that a Goblin Lord, in order to become one, he needed like the force of their personality or something. Like they needed to embody what they were. And I think we see Rabbit Eater, he's a champion, and we've seen cases of him through that scrying orb where he was fighting with the Order Seasons, and we've seen cases of him rescuing the cave goblins. I think the reason he became a goblin lord is because he embodies the idea of a champion. And the two previous goblin lords we've seen is the one in the Goblin Isle. He's said by Greydat to be the greatest shaman of goblins, and the Greydat himself was a master blades master. So I think it's the perception of whether or not you embody your class that decides whether or not you become a goblin lord.
So kind of like the goblins version of heroes, where like this is who represents them and they recognize that, and whether it be like the penultimate of their like it's the penultimate kind of level or trajectory of their class. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sort of. That's why Race he stumps me because I don't know why he became a Goblin Lord.
Did he become a goblin lord?
Yeah, our Necromancer lad.
Yeah, Rice was a
The nec-
Goblin Lord, a Necromancer Goblin Lord, as Crash supercharged his class by tutoring him.
Okay. So, I mean, if he was recognized, I mean, he had quite a few followers, and he could have been considered very, very good at his class. So maybe that, if keeping him within that theory,
I
uh,
can't wait to find out the lore about the goblins.
it's super cool, especially because I think it's going to tie into the mystery of the elves and everything. Clay says they think that Reese became a lord through his almost feverish desire to build a goblin city. So something like a goal that they're working toward with goblin kind or for goblin kind, maybe. Interesting. All right. Well, let's move on to the next discussion question. So, Red and Quill and a couple of you guys managed Rabbit Eater's relationship with non-goblins, right? Which is kind of a huge part of his class and what he's been doing over the last, well, ever since he left Israel, right? Is kind of associating, consorting with every non-goblin that he meets, other than when he finally kind of met up again with Bad Arrow. So, how do you think Rabbit Eater's relationship with the Ivory Four is going to evolve? How will long will he stick with the Tiandrians? And then along these lines, well, what role do you see Rabbit Eater playing in the Balorus plot this volume, right? We know Aaron and quite a few other figures are on Balorus as well, though they're kind of separated at the moment. We also have Tom coming in from Rahir, Tom being the clown, if you recall, and he was sort of exiled from Rahir for figuring out a couple secrets that he wasn't supposed to know about. And so they're sort of sending him on a death mission. We've got Neri with Nears, Aaron in a frailing village with Obama. We have the mystery goblin lord running around, and we have the treants surrounding the continent. So how is all of this going to come together plot-wise, or is it going to be separate plots for a bit? Thoughts? Reddit Quill.
So the big thing that happened back in Volume 8 was the what I forget what they're called, like they're from the edge of the world. Um, what are they named again? It ate the god of time.
Oh, the I know what you're talking about. I
You
forget
know
what
what
they're
I'm
called.
talking about.
Yeah, I know
Like
what you're
the
talking about.
abominations, whatever they look like
From the pit.
crabs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
pit.
Yeah, they eat the edges of worlds. Um, they invaded the Deadlands in Volume 8, and a big one stepped on Balaros. And where did it step? The place that it could affect the most, the Deadlands. Um, so
Seam
probably
walkers
the
from
Seamwalkers.
Sidehammer.
Yeah. The Seamwalker that ate the God of Time had the ability to like affect time, and it stepped on the Deadlands. And so Tom is probably going to fight the Deadlands. We know Nears is fighting the Deadlands. We know the Treants probably don't like the nature that's out of whack from the Deadlands. Uh, and if Rabbit Eater is on Balaros, there's no way he's not going to interact with the Deadlands. So this is actually like a foreshadowed plot line from like 2 volumes ago. So that's probably what's going to happen. It's all going to be like centered where people are meeting, fighting the Deadlands. Of course, over like an entire volume and maybe 2 volumes that this is going to happen. We know Tom is going to level against the Deadlands, but ostensibly being sent to die. But we know Tom can survive anything. He's going to live. But by
I
the way,
mean, we'll see.
we'll see what happens. He might be sacrificed at the altar, but I know he's not like a fan favorite. People don't like him, but I like him. He's an interesting
I
character.
think he's got a pretty devoted fan group. I mean, enough that in the recent poll, right, he tied with the Horns, and
Yeah, it
nobody
was
ties with the
close. It
Horns.
was close. Well, I think there's the meta for voting has changed because everyone knows the Heroes of Race is going to happen eventually, but they don't
Mm,
know if other options will happen. They're only going to happen if they're voted for. So
right.
the meta has kind of changed for voting. So other options that are not like main story plot are not as popular because they know Parda Abba will eventually write about them anyway. But if they vote for a story option, it's not going to get written about unless it's voted for. So we don't know if we're
Yeah.
going to get the Tom or the Christenver or not the Christenver, the Klibich. We don't know if we're going to get that unless we vote for it.
Oh,
Um,
we've completely left the Newlands.
yeah.
And the gold. The first one
Yeah,
was
we
Noel
could
a
have
Nolgi.
we're probably not going to get
Rush through that.
laws. We're not going to get Law's group starving again unless we vote for it. So you got to
Yeah.
vote. You got to vote for these non-main story plot lines in order for them to be written about because the main story plot lines will always get got into. It's just
Yeah.
it's really whether or not you could do delayed discounting. You know you're going to get it. Just wait a bit. Um, but yeah,
We'll have to see how
that's
it
what I think.
goes.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how all the plots are going to come together. Yura says they think we'll see an expedition into the Labyrinth of Souls, living up multiple characters. That's been teased. We have to think that Nears is going back in there. Not sure with who, but they're going back in there. Clay says the Time Walker, they believe that was the one that was called that ate the god. I don't recall its specific name, but I will bow down to your more encyclopedic knowledge. I'm interested to see how the relationship continues to evolve because I think Rabbit Eater has set a path back to Israel, back to Aaron. He wants to go home. So, does that mean that the other remaining living Ivory members tag along? Do they go their
Well,
separate ways? What
who do
happens?
we know that can transport not with boats but with a skill? It's Nears.
Yeah, but there's a limit to that, and they've got to swear to Nears to follow his lead.
I think they only ostensibly have to swear to him because, like,
No,
the goblins didn't swear to Nears. They were just following his orders, right?
but no, they were under his command. And so when you've got leaders of nations, I don't
Yeah, but
see
like
that essentially
as long as
working.
they're under his command to fight the Dyed Lands, then maybe he can shuffle them around.
But you
You
have to
know?
remember that Tiandria is the continent of like, right? Your word is your bond. And when you've got one of the members even questioning the fact that he maybe knew about a goblin was, somebody was potentially a goblin and letting them walk away, and he might, have to answer for that. I could
Yeah,
see it being
we'll
a real
see.
problem saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to follow your command even if it's for 5 minutes to get
Well,
transported to
well,
the right
no,
continent."
I think Nears will actually be commanding them
Mm,
because he's the best strategist and they're a good army. And at least the horns of Hamrad, Casimir and Vofia and Numtongue and Rabbit Eater will follow his command because he can buff them a lot. So if they're already fighting there, he joins their command, and then at the end of the battle, he wants to get like maybe I forget what her name is. She's a centaur commander. He wants to get her back, so he sends them. He sends like a few people over, maybe just the core group,
yeah.
and yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. I'm just no. I'm predicting. I'm predicting. I'm predicting. Paranama can do whatever they want, obviously, but I'm just predicting. It's been foreshadowed. He can teleport people. The the waters are being watched by the Doulahan group. Uh, so it's kind of hard to take the sea route. Hard to get a boat that will make the journey.
Well, they've
Um,
got a captain with or an admiral with them that's got a pretty
that's
good syllabus
true.
for
That's
that.
true. Dactylos might come over with the rest of them, but
He
like
just
for
needs a boat.
he literally just needs a boat. But I'm saying that like to send the core group in a timely manner,
Yeah.
it might be a teleportation of like 5 soldiers for the 5 characters, and that's all that is needed. And then Dactylos can come over later with like a boat that they bought for the rest of the soldiers. I'm just thinking like
Maybe.
to advance the story. That's something
I
that could
I think they're
happen.
gonna no, but I think they're gonna stay in Belarus for a while. Right? Sidehammer and Clay both make good points, right? So Sidehammer says, "I really hope Rabbit meets up with Aaron at some point in this volume, and they really enjoy the idea of taking on the Lab of Souls." Clay says, "Is Aaron going to continue leading people into dangerous situations? They wonder if we'll see her take on more of a role of 'I'm going with you so you don't die,' rather than 'I'm going with you so to succeed no matter what." So on that point, right, Erin is supposed to be kind of on a world tour, so to speak, kind of recovering, getting her feet from, under her and dealing with things. And we know, I suspect that she's not going back to Israel anytime soon, not until she's either been to here or dealt with a situation on Chandrar with the slavery. And if that's the case, my guess is that the Ivory group will stick together and they're going to find themselves co opted into Aaron's mission. I see them all
Oh,
headed to Chandrar rather than going to Israel because we know that, what's her name?
Seraphil?
Seraphil seems to have some sort of maybe like crush or friendship going on with Rabbit, like a really deep friendship with Rabbit Eater, but she seems to be
You don't
leading into
say
romance
bedside with
territory.
someone you don't care about, right?
Well,
She's
You
He's
can be a
saying,
friend.
cooling her hand in like ice water and pressing it on his forehead through
I
his
think she's got
helmet.
some feelings.
Yeah,
I think she caught some
she got
feelings.
she caught some feelings.
I think she's
But
got some feelings.
let's be honest, Rabbit Eater's got the Riz. He's
He
got the
does.
Riz.
But I think right, she wants them to stay together. And I think we ended that line with that smile on her face as the ship was sinking, or once she knew it was gone. And they're like, "Why are you what?" And she's like, "Everyone's staying together. The band is back."
The band is back together. It's like so unfortunate that the Earl of Reigns died. He would have been so
But he's
cool.
not. I think what's cool to remember is that he escaped to Helest, if I recall correctly. So
Oh,
he's
did he make
with
it
the
to the last?
goblins. I think he did.
Oh, he
Yeah.
died after Casigna died,
Yeah. So
and
I think he made it to
because
Helest.
he's in Celeste, so he might be like summoned as a skill. Do you think?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
the GDI does so far has not been summoning the souls from Helest because all of Casigna's souls got spat out into Helest.
Yep.
Helsted, sorry,
Well,
Helsted.
and some went to the other place that I don't remember the name of.
Oh, the starts with a D, right? That's like,
The
yeah,
heaven equivalent or whatever it is.
yeah. But like, it doesn't seem like the GDI is interfacing with
Mm-mm.
that because then Dakilos' skill would be summoning. Once it got those souls back, it would be summoning from the real souls that are in
Yeah,
Hellsted. Um, Also, there's no freaking way that Kevin is not like summoned in some way
hopefully.
because the whole Goblin tribe loves him, and
Yeah, well, multiple are, and the Antidians as well.
Numtong has a line into Hellsted already. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm foreseeing that.
Well,
uh,
and so a couple other listeners agree. Superbred Ninja says they keep thinking about the line at the end of Volume 8 where Calton Ford tells Aaron that all the answers lie on Balaros. Mystical Pie says they feel like Seraphil and Rabbit Eater is one of the most more believable potential romantic relationships Pirate has managed to cook up, so they hope it happens, especially because Californian Princess ex-Goblin Lord would be funny. Clay says they like the idea that I was proposing. It makes sense and has narrative interest. Rochelle started on Triandia. After all, having Tyrandians be some of Aaron's principal supporters on its end gives her word more weight with the rest of the world. I think that's the direction it's going to go. I've been surprised numerous times,
oh,
but I think we're going to end up with everybody on Chandrar, especially because the foreigners are over there. We know that Bofia and uh, it's not, I always mix up the names. Kissenver want to go back, right? They want to meet up with the Horns, but there's some adventures on Balaros that have to happen first. But I think everyone's going to end up over on Chandrar.
well, you know what is happening is that the king from like one of the Restful Three is coming with 10,000 soldiers, and who are the Tyrandrians that could like talk him off? It's the Ivory Five.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
That might be a
And
storyline. They'll first go and after Neri because she's the visible one, but after that,
right.
it might be the Ivory Five that meets up with Aaron and then talks with the
Oh yeah,
king
100%.
because they were there, and Rabbit Eater was also there. So there's no way that's not explored, right? It's not just going to
No,
be
no, it's got to
Aaron
be.
by herself against 10,000 soldiers and talking with them. It's going to be like a crossover episode with like a bunch of characters.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. Absolutely. All right, if we don't have any more thoughts on this topic, we'll jump to the next question that kind of follows this, which is timeline. Everyone's favorite topic to speculate on with a wandering in. It deals with numbers. Where are we at in the timeline, right? So we know that Aaron landed on Balaros, a couple weeks after drifting at sea. We know that other people are making their way there or there already. So where is this happening, right? When we see the ship sink, we see that they're scrambling into the woods or the jungle to escape. What's going on here? How soon after this does Aaron contact Rabbit Eater through the pavilion? What does he do in that gap? Are they making their way towards Aaron? Are they still wandering around? We know they're in Jungle Tales territory, which Nears is currently at war with, so that's not great for them. They could potentially end up captives, right? Or sort of a hostage situation. So just curious to see everyone thinks of this. Sidehammer says Eren is still at sea at this point in the chapter, they think. Clay says Eren was mentioned as having been found in Talonqual, which has happened, they believe, 2 weeks before Eren landed on the beach. So that puts her contacting Rabbit maybe 3 weeks from the point of this chapter where we're at with Rabbit Eater. Red Quill, what are your thoughts?
So I agree with what everything said. Everyone said. Eren, the real Eren is probably at sea. The Nary Eren, has landed and is probably is on her way to meet Nears and have like sex with him. But it's going to be like a little. We're going to flesh out this timeline with what's happening in the next few chapters. Because, but I'm also not. I don't like. I don't believe that authors necessarily have to uh, be so accurate with timelines necessarily, because like the author of Discworld, Terry Pratchett, said things happen in people arrive when I need them to, you know. So it just has to be like somewhat believable, so it doesn't like break belief, but like it doesn't have to be like a calendar saying
No,
who
no.
who is where everywhere on what date, what are the time, how long does it take to travel with the weather and the conditions on the road, like it, you don't have to care that much. This is a fiction, this is like, even the military isn't like necessarily doing that, as we saw with like the exfiltration from Afghanistan. Not even in reality is something that organized. So why shouldn't authors
Yeah,
work a fiction that be like
there's
that?
a point to that, but I think the idea is more that we know, right? Erin's having her adventures on Valeros. She's going through recovery. Naren's messing around with Niers. But we know that from hints when Eren was contacting Rabbit Eater, right, they were going through something. And so the speculation is right now they're about to start on that journey. They were
Yeah.
being pursued and attacked when Eren contacted them, and Rabbit Eater's like, it's all good. We'll
Yeah, it's
manage.
probably it's
So
probably just skirmishes
what?
with jungle tails.
Yeah. So I think the speculation is just like what are they facing, right? What's coming up that we have only seen hints about?
Probably skirmishes with jungle tails. They're in jungle tails territory, so it's probably skirmishes. Rabbit Eater will be able to use his skills to help lead the Night Order and maybe the soldiers, make them stronger. At least like small tactics. Um, but they'll be fighting and skirmishing with jungle tails, and that's probably how they'll meet Niers in the future, because Niers is at war with jungle tails, so those meet naturally. And then Rabbit Eater will know that Naren is not real Eren. He'll know who real Eren is, but he might still go to Niers' city, and meet with Niers, because Niers has a history of like communicating with goblins. There's already a goblin tribe in the area, uh, and we know that the Goblin Lord is in that area also, and that Rabbit Eater can sense him. So I'm just guessing that's probably what's going to happen. Yeah.
Wonder if the Goblin tribe is going to be the one that kind of connects with everybody before everyone connects with each other, right? Because we know that they've interacted a bit with Niers, and then it's been a while, but I think they made contact with Eren, or they were in the process of, right? She sensed them or something. So I wonder if they're going to be the ones that end up interfacing and connecting with everybody before all the separate groups meet, which would
Are we
be
talking about the Goblin Lord goblins or the Mushroom goblins?
either.
Either, yeah. Probably something. There's no way Rabbit Eater doesn't meet the Goblin Lord of Balros. There's no way. He's going to learn a lot about his class, probably from that Goblin Lord.
Mm-hmm.
If they can sense each other, it's just like fate that they'll meet. Uh, it just narratively makes sense. But I'm pretty sure they're going to be skirmishing with Jungle Tales. Eventually, later, it hasn't happened yet, but they'll probably meet up with Niers, and then maybe fight with in the Dyed Lands. Just guessing, or
Yeah, I
maybe,
mean,
yeah,
Patricia also points out that maybe the Iron Vanguard is following them as well and
yeah,
going after them. I mean, they sank the ship and turned around, but they could pursue them through the jungle
yeah.
potentially.
Yeah, potentially Iron Vanguard. Although, if Aaron can interact with Iron Vanguard and they owe her a debt, she has the Pavilion Secrets. She could probably solve that conflict
It's
with.
curious that they're going after the Tandrians, but and they know that those are Aaron. Well, some of them
It's
are Aaron's
because
allies.
the Tarandrians used their ICBM spells
Yeah,
on on Greydath, and they incidentally killed their human mage that was in Wistrom. I forget his like Blackwood or something, or I forget his name. But he was really
yeah,
good with like shield spells, but wasn't good enough against like
yeah.
against everyone's skills.
But Trickier points out though that the debt wasn't the debt paid by the Archmage coming to the aid of Aaron. I think the debt has been paid, but there is a sense of like
They're really big on honor.
ally. Well, and also just ally. I mean, the debt's been paid, but if you've got kind of an ally and well, maybe a potential ally that you wouldn't attack, I don't know. It's complicated with the Iron Vanguard. They're kind of weird.
Yeah. They hate dragons, they hate the Trandrians. But I'm guessing that the Sea Lanes will not be for long stopped by the Iron Vanguard. Probably Aaron will interact with them with the Pavilion and maybe give them some more information that they're seeking. Because we haven't seen it because we haven't got a lot of chapters with her, but she has a skill which allows her to communicate with everyone across the world, and both of them know that what's being said is the truth, and that's very valuable. Like,
Yeah,
it's
true.
extremely valuable.
I mean,
So
it could be also that we just don't see any of this, right? We see hints of it, but we're not going to spend another chapter following Rabbit Eater and crew from jungle entry to meeting up with whoever they meet with. I mean, Clay points out travel from X to Y took 2 episodes / chapters. It's like somewhere between a week and 7 months, perfectly acceptable for a story. Um, they also say
yeah,
whatever happens with the Iron Vanguard, they'll be an enemy again soon when they go after Terry / Raphama / Siri. If the debt hasn't been paid yet, it'll be paid to call off the Ivory for.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we'll get that story, or it just might be a slight flashback recollection when everybody kind of
It
meets
might have
up.
been planned to be written about in like a bunch of smaller chapters this week, but
Yeah,
then she had the death in the family, so it didn't happen.
yeah, I
Uh,
mean that's the other thing is life happens and impacts writing plans. So
yeah,
you know who knows how it's gonna play
it's
out.
not written in like a hermetically sealed
No,
chamber, you know.
not at all.
Yeah.
And Patricia also points out that Nears isn't on the best of terms with Tom, and we know that he wants to be besties and more with Aaron. So, and
Oh
Aaron's kind of
yeah.
got a complicated relationship with everybody. So who knows?
Erin's going to be extremely pivotal. Whatever it is, she's going to be pivotal. She always has been, even when she was just a regular innkeeper. Before
Yes.
she was powerful, she was very pivotal. She unlocked. She basically integrated the Antinium tribe, the Free Antinium, into becoming Free Antinium, and also into Liskor in general. She integrated them. That was before she had any like skills or anything. She's just naturally good at this. Uh, so she's definitely going to continue being pivotal. It's just probably different than it normally is because normally an Aaron chapter is also a wandering in chapter, but
Yeah.
now an Aaron chapter is not a wandering in chapter. So we're probably getting less of Aaron because we're also getting what's happening in the wandering in separate chapters. It's just like a logistics thing of writing about it.
I mean, there's a
Um,
lot of moving plot points. Some of them are coming together. I'd say all. There's not so much new plot points being introduced, but old ones all coming together, and
yeah,
we are winding down. I will say that, like, there's a lot. There's absolutely a lot, but we are starting to work through a lot of the stuff that's been set up, back in volume 1 and 2, and we're starting to see things move along and come into one major plot line together. It's just really cool to see it all come together.
yeah,
But it takes time.
yeah.
So let's move on to the last kind of question about Rabbit Eater. So this was an odd part of the chapter for me. But thoughts on how Rabbit Eater's opinions on the Order of the Solstice and how he dealt with Ravel, who's the vampire squire now knight. So Clay says Rabbit Eater never felt like a solstice knight to them. He's his own man. They bet he'll really like them and support them, but stay tangential, like Dalamon seems to be. I think it's a matter of miscommunication potentially, right? So Aaron created the Order of the Solstice to add validity to Rabbit Eater's claim, right? To back him up and say, yeah, this is the real deal. And then since then, the Order of Solstice has kind of split off from the Inn, become its own thing, and they hold up the Knoll Knight and Rabbit Eater as kind of their two first members without really having ever talked or know anything about them. So I was like, it makes sense that Rabbit Eater didn't kind of immediately buy in. But Revel is now kind of sworn to follow him and follow Aaron, whereas the Order of the Solstice has split off from Aaron and is kind of doing their own thing. So you've got this like issue almost that's arising where who are they going to follow, right? Rabbit Eater is sworn to Aaron and the Inn. Ravel is now sworn to Rabbit Eater, but he's also sworn to the Order of the Solstice, and the Order of Solstice is trying to separate itself from the Inn. So is that going to be a complication? Is that going to be an issue? Or are we going to see two different like chapters of the Order of the Solstice, even when they're just getting started? Or is this just like creating drama where there is no drama and things will sort itself out and it'll be okay? Eager to hear your thoughts. Superbed Ninja says the Order feels like an order of all people, while Rabbit is a champion of all people. They can see him becoming a cornerstone of the Order as their champion. Clay says maybe there'll be a friendly schism, maybe there'll be an Order of the Summer and an Order of the Winter Solstice. I love that idea. We do have two solstices. They have been played up. It would be kind of cool and very in keeping with the Fae, which are part of the Inn and its history, where you have the summer and the winter. That I really, really do like, because the current Order of the Solstice is more winter-based, right? They have their origins in that winter solstice, whereas Rabbit Eater is more an Order of the Summer. I love that idea, Clay. I like that's super cool. Red Ink Quill, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what both Superbred Ninja and Clay said. Rabbit Eater is going to be the champion of the Order. He's their strongest fighter. Other Night Orders have champions. He's going to be the Solstice's, the Order of the Solstice's champion. And also, the Winter Solstice, what do you need in winter? You need fire to keep warm. What do you need in summer solstice? You need light because it's summer. And what does Rabbit Eater have? Light. So when Rabbit Eater gets back to the Israel, integrates back into the solstice group, he will naturally get followers, and he will teach them how to get the light skills, which he already has. And that'll be like the summer solstice part of the Order of the Solstice. But more importantly, Rabbit Eater will get goblins to join the Order of Solstice, because although they have vampires, they have gnolls, they have Antinium, they don't have goblins yet, even though Rabbit Eater was like one of the first Order member. When he comes back, some of Rag's tribe will join as like probably the Red Scar or people of that caliber will join the Order of the Solstice and become Summer Knight, maybe. I'm just spitballing here. Yeah.
No, I like the idea. My only thing would be with that is that he's a Goblin Lord, right? So how is he going to reconcile the? I mean, and this gets into classes and stuff, but
he has a subclass. He sells the subclass. He sells the subclass Knight, Solar Knight.
Got this push, but I think Goblin Lords are just for, right? It's all about goblins. It's goblin, goblin, goblin. But he also has this other aspect of himself, so you're right, where he's a champion of all people, like Superbed Ninja said, where he associates primarily with the Inn and with Aaron, but his class, or one of the major parts of his class, is supposed to be about championing whatever this is with Goblin Lords and the King and how that deals with it out. Right? Those are almost two contrasting ideas to me. And so I'm curious to see how that plays out potentially.
he might become. You know how he's a Goblin Lord of unnamed. It's not like filled in yet. He might become Goblin Lord of the Order of the Solstice Knights, because there'll be goblins in the order. So that'll satisfy it. He'll become the champion of the order because his class is already Rabbit Eater of Champions or something like that. Um, and that just makes sense to me. There's no goblins in the order yet. They will join when he comes back, and he'll take them on. Some will join as squires, and then they will become knights, because that's how Rabbit Eater became a knight, by just doing knightly things and, following he was like kind of like a knight in the same way Laws was a knight. He wasn't part of an order. He just like started doing knightly things and he became one.
Trying to gain
Not
fast.
Yeah, he kind of got the class, but like they'll join the order, get the light skills or the fire skills, and I just think it's really interesting. I love this stuff. You know,
I think it's super
part
intriguing. I could discuss skills and class ideas like all day.
yeah,
I love the tidbits that we get. Mystical Pie has a good point though, right? They think the main contrast between the Order and Rabbit Eater is certainty in what it means to be a knight. Norman is very uncertain about what being a knight means and is taking a lot of inspiration from Tiandrian ideas. Rabbit Eater, meanwhile, has been very vocal about his opinion that Tiandrian knights are stupid. He has more of a witch is a witch approach to being a knight. He is not interested in the philosophy and tradition and bureaucracy of knighthood. He is interested in embodying knighthood through his being and actions. And Clay 100% agrees with this. And this is why I wonder, Superbed Ninja and you both kind of said that, maybe he ends up a champion of the knight or of the Order of the Solstice. But based on what we saw with Ravel in this chapter, it doesn't really seem like he's been declared a member by Aaron, but I kind of wonder if he just reneges on those ties completely, right?
you
He
think
is a
so?
knight. Yeah,
Yeah.
he doesn't seem to kind of buy into being a member of the Order of the Solstice. So my guess is that he rejects that, and
I,
maybe
I
at
think that's
best
just a
we end up with this
miscommunication because they haven't been connected, and now they
maybe,
are. But now they are connected. So
maybe.
they're slowly going to communicate with each other.
But
Um,
I do see him inspiring more goblins to join, like you said, and that's where I could see this Order of the Summer, Order of the Winter Solstice kind of popping up. And
yeah,
they're associated with solstice, but they're more like the seasons where they're kind of two separate groups that overlap in certain respects.
yeah. I think it's just really interesting. Rabbit Eater is obviously his own man. He'll figure out what he wants to do, but
Yeah.
he's probably going to join the Order of Solstice in some capacity and give them a lot of legitimacy, because
Yes.
he he has been interacting with all the knight orders and beating the champions of other orders, and you know he knows more about knighthood than anyone in the Order of the Solstice knows, and
Right.
he'll add a lot of legitimacy. He'll give them confidence in order to expand their their order. I think it's just really interesting because they have a lot of recruits that are currently building a keep at the mouth of the northern entrance to the high passes, that side route, and they have a leveling area of running that route. So I think he's going to come back, not this volume, maybe next volume, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll see what happens. Um, I don't think that Paradaba necessarily lets miscommunications last for the whole story. I haven't noticed that.
No,
People
it's not like other story where you're like, if you just talked, this would not be a problem. Like
no,
they
they
they don't
talk. They
yeah,
talk.
they don't play into that trope, but I feel like this is a natural consequence where you have, right, they're separated by missions, by experience, by continents. Like this is a natural place for miscommunication to lead to different, even a somewhat unfriendly outcome. And I'd be curious if Pirate plays that angle up in
Oh,
the plot, because this is a natural place for it.
do you know what actually might happen? He might start the summer solstice chapter unofficially on Valorous,
Mm.
because people
Hmm.
see him and Ravel, and they want to join the order, and he
Mhm.
might start training them, and he doesn't have the fire skills, so he'd be teaching them the light skills. And that's
Mm.
just might be how it happens. We might have not have to wait another volume for this to happen. It might start happening this volume on
Yeah.
Balros. Yeah.
Clay says that one of the favorite things about TWI is the lack of prolonged dramatic irony. They hate dramatic irony. I agree, but I think it has its place, and I really love when it comes up in stories through natural circumstances and isn't forced. And I
As
think
long
this
as
is
it's
a
not
situation.
contrived. Yeah.
Right, but I feel like this is a situation, a rare situation, where it's not contrived. You could have dramatic irony here in play, and it almost be, it's relevant to the plot, and it's done really well, and it leads to two of these different orders of the solstice happening very
Yeah.
naturally, and it would be
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
cool to see that play out when they interact finally.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, the thing is that the inn is already interacting with Namtung, and that'll
Mm.
open up some kind of communication through that because uh I'm blanking on names. The princess
Lynette.
Lynette already is communicating with Namtung. She's already communicating with the Order of the Solstice. It'll just naturally be some cross pollination there. Um, so
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, probably. I'm
That's
just
good.
guessing. If there wasn't the grand theater skill where like you
Well, but
could like
that's getting blocked now, right? They had shielding against the Grand Theater that had some trouble getting through, and we know other groups are blocking it.
yeah,
So
I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing that there'll probably be some communication there. Um, and he probably will be teaching more knights. They will be getting
yeah.
his skills for light. And maybe it'll be like different flavored lights, how it's um, different flavored fire. We'll see what happens. You know, light is a big thing in this story. There's two kingdoms that do light. There's the one in Chandar. There's the one in
Mm.
Tarandria.
And yeah.
So we know light is like a big thing, and it's probably going to be Rabbit Eater's thing as well. Uh,
Well, Umshot believes with you, he agrees with you, right? Ravel being part of the summer solstice and getting light skills really tickles them due to, due to his vampirism.
yeah,
Vampire with shooting light bolts.
yeah. It'll probably be
Hilarious.
like dark light or something, black light. You know.
But
uh,
let's move on to the last discussion question, which is what is going on with Numtung? This character, a stalwart part of the inn, right? I never of the initial goblins that were at the inn, Numtung was the fan favorite. He's the one we've seen the most of. Rabbit Eater was kind of off in the distance, had amusing moments, but Numtung was the guy, right? And then ever since the battle at the most recent battle at the inn, he has been not present. He's not really been written about in chapters. The few appearances he's had, he's been weird. He's been depressed. So what's going on with him? What do you guys think? Right? He used to be a super big supporter of Aaron, and then we had that line in this chapter of like, being with Aaron is dangerous. Like, be careful. And Rabbit Eater's like, what the hell is wrong with you? As well as Bad Arrow. So yeah. What are your all's thoughts? Patricio says that they're interested in finding out about Numtung, as they can't really see him reaching Goblin Lord, even behind Gothica. Clay says they think Numtung is depressed. They feel like it's pretty simple in that regard, and they think the direction that this is going is leading the story towards more exploration of what happens when goblins get to stop fighting for survival every minute of every day. It's the goblins are people too theme, if this is the case. It could be simple depression. It could be that we know he has that connection with the spirit world. Maybe he saw more spirits and more souls, but maybe it has something to do with his bard class. But for him to go from being a stalwart supporter, considered family, and now he's kind of almost like, hey, be careful around Aaron. That's a pretty big jump. I wonder if something else is going on. Sidehammer says that from Discord, they think he's become a Goblin Lord, or all of his girlfriends are pregnant. Umshot says basically he got soft. Mystical Pie says they have no ideas, but they're pretty confident that it's neither that his girlfriends are pregnant or that he's become a Goblin Lord. Reddit Quill, what are your thoughts?
Like, we know Numtung is a soul bard and he can interact with the dead from House Day.
Mhm.
He's probably already in communication with some of the dead people that died. The strange thing is that no goblins died. Um,
At
only
least not named ones.
no named goblins died.
Yeah.
Only Red Scar's Thunderfur died. Um, so maybe he just saw something from Casigna. She was like eating souls and stuff. Maybe he saw that and that scared him in some way. That's the only thing I can think of. None of his girlfriends died either, so it's like a little strange why he's so
Sahalis
bad.
says that he lost all of his ghosts and possibly his class. They got eaten. Is that confirmed? I don't recall.
Oh, do you think? Wait,
Did did
no way.
or,
Casigna didn't get close to the end. Numtung didn't
yeah,
fight with her. Numtung didn't fight with her. Uh,
but did he fight with other? I mean, it could just be the loss of loved ones, right? Like he was pretty tight with Kevin. Kevin died. That can be like
yeah, but the other
kind of.
goblins also like Kevin, and they're not like fuck Aaron, so it's like a little strange. I think it could be just depression. Like he finally he's had a lot of time to like live in modern society where all his needs are taken care of and he can
Mhm.
contemplate stuff. And he's probably having like some existential crisis
He
of
is a soul bard. Could it be that his class gives him some form of empathy, and he's feeling like what everyone's feeling around him, and it's just
oh
magnified?
yeah, he might be thinking he might have some like empathy skills. Um but we honestly, if no matter what we say, we're just speculating because we have no information.
Oh yeah, no, this is just speculation putting together. This is entirely guesses.
Yeah.
But I think this is the actual question, right? This has come up a few times. People have been like, "Where is Numtung? What's going on?" And now we have another hint this chapter, and it's like, "Ooh, okay, something is definitely going on." But what? What could it be?
Yeah. I just feel bad because, like, I remember a few chapters ago when we were wondering what happened to Fell, I said
Mhm.
something and I was totally wrong, and I don't want to feel that way again. So
Fair enough. Well, everyone's speculating, so it could be that we're all wrong.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But it's fun
Um,
when you guess and you're right. I mean, that's also pretty cool.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Probably depressed, probably some empathy skills. We know that someone that did die that was close to the end was one of the brothers of serendipitous meetings. I forget
Mhm.
what his name was, but he was like the one that stayed behind that didn't become a knight. That was still the guard for the end,
Yeah,
the security for the end. He died, and Numtung was there when it happened.
yeah.
Um, so although
Seeing the loss of all those dreams.
that was not really Aaron's fault. That was Rashal.
But I
So
mean, if you just in each case, it's never really been Aaron's fault, right? But when
yeah,
you're at the epicenter of all these major events, it does start to take its toll on those around you.
yeah, I guess people never really care about the facts. They just care about how it feels, you
Well, I
know?
mean, even if it is the fact is she does draw all of this on her through her actions and choices.
She's well, none of her actions and choices led to Rashal going after her. It was just that she existed and Rashal was after her. So
She
like
existed,
Aaron didn't like
nothing.
didn't taunt them, didn't communicate with them in any way.
Well,
Uh
she chose not to. I mean, I'm not saying she's in any way wrong. She was
yeah,
absolutely right, but
yeah, yeah.
she decided not to interface with them, right? She decided to ignore entreaties of uh support, right? Because they did reach out, right? The ghost reached out, they did reach out in real life, and she's like, go get fucked. Like,
Go
no.
stuck on rocks, yeah.
Right. But I
Um
mean, that was a choice, and by going up against Rochelle, that is a natural, and like I said, she is totally correct. I Personal opinion, she's completely correct. But that is an action, a consequence of her actions. And
Yeah, I don't know. I
if
just
you
think it's
lost
like kind of
people,
like rocky,
yeah,
rocky. theory crafting, whereas like if you don't interact with slavers, they try to enslave you instead. Like it's just like kind
Well,
of
I mean,
strange.
I'm just saying that she, like, I could see from a character's perspective, if you've got someone who keeps going up against the major forces in the world that otherwise have ignored you up until that point, right?
Yeah.
If you were just like, you arrived, you caused these problems, it's not necessarily a correct assumption, but you can say, like, if you weren't here, I wouldn't be attacked like I'm being attacked.
Yeah, but also
That's,
Numtung wouldn't exist without Aaron.
oh, 100%. Absolutely. But people
Numtung,
don't put
none of the
rationally.
goblins, none of the goblins would exist without Aaron. None of the
But
not even
not,
Rags,
nope,
not even, nobody, none of the goblins on Israel that we've interacted with that like have interactions with Aaron would have become the goblins that they are without Aaron's influence.
true.
So I think Rabbit Eater knows that, and Numtung has maybe forgotten it.
Well,
Uh,
they're going through different journeys and different experiences, and
yeah,
Rabbit
yeah.
versus Numtung, I mean, they went through different battles, and facing a goddess of death versus like the forces of humans out to kill you. I mean, they're absolutely horrific in scale, but a goddess which completely fucks with your entire view, excuse my language, view of the world, that can be a bit more traumatic than companions dying at sea. So it could be that they just have different levels of trauma.
They also have different roles with interacting with Aaron.
True.
Numtung defended Aaron and got, damaged for it. Aaron came to save Numtung,
Right.
right?
Or you rabbit eater.
The Rabbit Eater, sorry. Aaron came to save Rabbit Eater. She put everything at risk to
Yep.
save him. And he's not going to forget that.
It
So,
could be a simple case of jealousy, actually. Right? We know both of them
oh,
were in love with her, right? Numtung asked her if there was potential romantic thing, and she said no. But then he sees that she goes and does all of this for Rabbit Eater. Maybe he's kind of
yeah,
mourning the
might
loss of
be,
that relationship
might be some
potential.
jealousy. Might be some jealousy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well,
Um,
real quickly, some thoughts from others. Right? Patricier says after the incident with Tyrion, he believed the rest of the Red Fangs to be dead. Now he just saw Rabbit Eater get hunted and Barrowed Arrow go after him, leaving him alone. Plus, he's the only goblin to reside in the inn as a member of Aaron's family, so maybe he's just hit very hard by recent events. Amshot says, oh, that sounds very plausible regarding the empathy skills theory. Clay says, building on what Patricier says, Numtum's probably shaken by Aaron's abduction, and then the whole getting nuked incident, then discovering she's still alive and his emotions are misdirected like any person's could be. Sahela says all this about empathy and depression was similar to Volume 6, which would be narratively consistent but unoriginal, and TWI is usually very surprising. They bet that there's something happening to his ghosts in his class. While it wasn't explicitly mentioned, they could really see that Casigna either ate his ghosts or they passed on and he's no longer a soul bard, or possibly not a bard at all. That'd be very crushing and scary. Mystical Pie says, random thought, but maybe Nuntung hasn't really fully gotten over being rejected and was kind of upset when he saw what Aaron was willing to do to save Rabbit Eater. Don't really believe this explains everything, though. So, yeah,
I
absolutely
I have
on all of this.
I have a
Yep, go ahead.
theory that hasn't been mentioned yet. We
Yep.
don't know on the timeline. It's probably happened that Neri gave her interview where she said that she had no regrets, and everyone thinks that's Aaron.
Mm,
You
yeah,
know,
timeline wise, potentially that could be it too.
so
Right? If
Numtung
Nuntung.
might be thinking, "Oh,
Oh
Aaron
yeah,
doesn't feel anything about any of this. That's not the
yeah.
Aaron I know." I'm feeling rejected by her in like a friend sort of way and empathy. We had a connection, and she's saying nothing about any of us. Uh, so he might this might be a miscommunication, and
That's a good point.
we'll see what happens when Rabbit Eater communicates with Aaron, and then Rabbit Eater communicates with Lionette and also Numtung, and then maybe some miscommunications will be cleared up. Because the thing about Neri is that she's giving both allies and enemies the wrong impression of what Aaron thinks and what Aaron does. You know, like
Yeah,
like she
that's a
danced
good
on
point.
the dead bodies with like goat legs, uh Like that's not the Aaron we know. I'm feeling alienated by that. That might be what's
No,
happening.
I think that's a good point. It could be something as simple as that, right? Going back to that miscommunication, dramatic irony stuff we were talking about in the last discussion question.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a
yeah.
really great point. And that's kind of where it is important to know timeline wise a little bit what's going on. But yeah, great. So we've gone through all these lovely discussion questions. Does anybody have any last thoughts before we kind of wrap up discussion today? Red and Quill, any final thoughts?
Yeah. I just thought for a 20,000 word chapter, which is like relatively short for Paradaba, it got through a lot. It touched on a lot of different things, a lot of different themes, a lot of different plot points. We had a lot to talk about. And this was actually, it seems like it was planned to be one of several chapters that was released this week. So it's just really interesting how much quality writing we're getting from Paradaba with their new schedule. I'm just here for it. I was really enjoying it.
I thought it did a really good job of bouncing from plot point to plot point and from character point of view to character point of view. Sometimes they don't always flow naturally, but this was very contained. And I felt like when I read the end, I'm like, that's it. Wait, but I already finished like the 20,000 words, and I felt like, but more because it was. I read it so quickly because it flowed so well together. I did enjoy this chapter as well. Fully agree on that point. Clay says that they love this chapter, couldn't wait to see or can't wait to see Aaron's and Rags' reactions to knowing Rabbit is a lord. They agree too that these multi-part chapters have been absolutely killer lately. Sidehammer says this is one of their favorite chapters of this volume. So yeah, lots of great reactions. Mystical Pie says that they love this chapter and all the recent chapters. They're hoping we won't be left on a multi-month cliffhanger with regards to what's going to happen to Rags, though. We'll just have to find out. We don't really kind of know what the new schedule is, if it is going to remain one a week or if it's going back to like chapters every few days. Obviously, recent events in real life absolutely do take priority. So in the meantime, it'll be fun to speculate about everything and kind of best wishes to Pirate in this, in this time, and hopefully they're spending time with family and friends. So yeah, Red and Quill, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I know this was like a Wednesday late night kind of thing. I'm usually not the only one talking besides the host. It's usually not just me and Asteria talking during these to the future listeners to this. Usually there's like 5 or 6 people that talk, but they didn't make it today. So I made sure to talk every single time so we'd fill in this conversation and have an interesting thing to listen to for all future listeners.
Oh, I really appreciate that, but that's not to discount the people who are typing in chat. Not everyone
Yeah,
is
yeah,
typing
yeah.
aloud,
Of course, of course. But like
and they.
people like the
It's nice to talk with
podcast.
someone, yeah.
People like the conversation. So I wanted to talk, and I also wanted to make it interesting for people that are listening. So
Well, I greatly appreciate it. It was lovely having a conversation with you, as well as our writers. And it was great having it. It's kind of interesting to have this like multi-faceted conversation where you've got people typing in chat, we're talking, and I'm reading stuff aloud. So I think it's fun. It was a good go today, but I appreciate you talking out loud as
yeah,
well.
I didn't want to leave you hanging. You're just talking to yourself the whole time.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. So
Clay
that'll
actually
wrap us.
thinks I was a host, which is funny. I'm not. I'm just someone
You
that
did.
stepped up.
You
I
kind
just
of
stepped
you
up.
filled in today.
Yeah.
You were my co-host. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So this is us wrapping up today's discussion of chapter 10.22R of The Wandering Inn. Thanks for joining and listening in, and hopefully see you guys at the next discussion. This was Red Ink Quill and Asteria, as well as all of our lovely writer-ins. And yeah, see you next time.
Yeah.